starting in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the City of Brisbane's Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting for June 25th, 2025. Yeah, we have, I guess we start with a staff roll call today.
Molly, is your mic on? We can't hear you. Okay, sorry.
Should I repeat myself?
Yeah, I think you did. Were you?
I think you have to repeat. Okay. Tonight, OSEC Chair Salmon is attending the meeting remotely using the Just Cause Brown Act provision. Chair Salmon, can you disclose whether any individual 18 years or older is present in the room where you are?
Maybe she's muted.
My husband's way across the room. He's over 18, but I don't think he can hear me. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay,
Michelle.
thank you. And then can you also disclose where you are?
Yes, I'm at my house on Sierra Point Road in Brisbane.
Okay, thank you.
So with one member attending remotely, every vote on something that's an action item you'll need to do as a roll call, including roll call.
Great. Okay, then let's do the roll call. So let's see. Committee Member Armstrong.
Present?
All right. Committee Member Tapatu.
Present.
All right.
Present.
Committee Member Becker.
All right, present.
All right. Committee Member Ebel.
Here.
All right. Committee Member Rogers.
Present.
All right. And Vice Chair Walker, that's me. I am here. And
I'm here remotely.
Chair Salmon. All right. I think we've got everybody. All right. Welcome, welcome. Okay. So should we move on to the adoption of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
All right. Is there a second?
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So, and we have to do the roll call vote again for all of these, right? Okay. So, Armstrong.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Atapatu.
Yes.
All right. Becker.
Yes.
Ebel.
Aye.
Rogers.
Yes.
Aye. And Chair Salmon.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I think we're good there now. Let's see. Are we on to announcements?
I'll make an announcement. Anybody else can go first, but I'll make an announcement at the end.
Okay. At the end. Okay.
Of the announcements.
I see. Oh, okay. Well, do we have anything else?
We did another frog habitat visit, and there were a lot more frogs than on the original visit. We missed you, Mary, because at first we didn't hear them. We needed your recording.
Oh,
That was nice, and looked at some other things that we needed to do in terms of working on that. And Dolores was there. It was good. We got a lot of pictures, and then we went to the library afterwards and looked at the display, and the librarians were really excited about the frog display, so that was good.
Very cool. All right. Does anybody have anything else? Maybe you're up, Barbara.
okay. So effective immediately, I'm resigning the committee. I knew this season was going to be very hard on me, but unfortunately, the person they hired as my assistant is kind of emotionally abusive and bullying me, and I don't know how to deal with this. And I need to just step back so that I can take care of myself. I'm really sorry, guys, to do this. Maybe I'll reapply next year, but and you know, and with the bullying that was happening online earlier this year, I just need to take a break from trying to fix all the things and save all the people, because right now it's not paying off. And I just need to go. I'm sorry.
Barbara, I want to personally thank you for your amazing contributions to OSEC during your tenure. We could not have done some of the things we've done without you, and you will be sorely missed.
Sorry.
Take care of yourself.
Yep. We're proud of you for taking care of yourself, and we hope you come back soon. Wow, she was on OSEC for so long. This has got to be a really hard time. Wow.
Longer than I've staffed the committee, and that's going on 10 years, I think.
Wow. Well, I'm sure we all wish her the best. I hope that everything works out. Okay. Well, right. Okay. Yeah. Should we move on to the approval of the minutes?
Make sure you check if there are any oral communication.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Are there any oral communications?
Or
here?
anything received by email before. No.
No, nothing's been received by email.
No. Okay. All right. Then in that case, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes.
I'll second it.
All right, and a second. Okay. So then we'll go through the roll call vote again. Committee Member Armstrong.
Yes.
Atapatu.
Yes.
All right. Becker.
Yes.
All right. And Rogers.
Yes.
All right. And you got a yes for me. And Chair Salmon.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. Now, we believe are on to the presentation. Do we have we're having the presentation today, or okay?
Yes, we have Alejandra Posada from Peninsula Clean Energy remotely over Zoom, and they have asked to, or we asked them to present on some of their new programs so that both you and the public can hear about what they have to offer.
Excellent.
So I will turn it over to you, Alejandra.
Hi, thank you everyone. My name is Alejandra Posada. I'm with Peninsula Clean Energy. If I share my screen, will you all be able to see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can you confirm you can see them? Okay.
Absolutely.
Looks good.
Yes.
Coming through great.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I was invited here to talk about the Peninsula Clean Energy Home Upgrade Services. So these is for helping residents electrify their homes, so move away from gas appliances to clean electric appliances. So I'm going to talk about that here. Just a little bit about Peninsula Clean Energy, just for any of you that may not be familiar with us. We're a local public agency that started in 2016 with a mission to reduce carbon emissions. We serve all of San Mateo County, so that includes Brisbane. And we're governed by a local board of elected officials, one from each city, two from the county. So how it works, just a little bit about that. We provide the electricity generation. Our electricity is cleaner and also cheaper than PG&E. Currently is 10% cheaper than PG&E, and it's also 100% greenhouse gas free. So it comes from resources like solar and wind power. PG&E still owns and maintains all the delivery lines. So what that results in is residents are both customers of both Peninsula Clean Energy and PG&E on the electricity side, and the gas service is still fully PG&E. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're a government agency with the goal to reduce carbon emissions. So how are we doing that? Of course, the main way is by providing cleaner power at lower rates. Everybody's automatically enrolled, so all residents of Brisbane would be automatically enrolled in Peninsula Clean Energy service. But there's other things that we can do to reduce carbon emissions within the county. Our big focus is in transportation and in methane gas within buildings. So here I'm going to talk about a third of the pie of where emissions are coming from, which is natural gas within homes, or methane gas, because it produces methane that contributes to climate change. So that is things like gas furnaces, gas water heaters, gas stoves, and gas fryers. So yeah, our goal is to just help residents replace fossil fuel-based things and appliances with clean electric alternatives. So how do we do that within the home? So this is for an average home, like an average single family home in California. The majority of emissions are coming from hot water heating. That's simply just because like water heating is used like year round. Space heating is more just in the winter season. But most of the emissions are coming from water heating and space heating. So that's why we have a large focus on helping residents replace their gas furnaces and gas water heaters with electric heat pumps. So benefits of electric appliances, they're functional because they're newer. They often have enhanced features. They're efficient. They use less energy than gas appliances do, especially really old ones. And they're safer. There's no gas combustion within the home, and better for air quality, especially, things like gas stoves, really emit, pollutants within the home where induction stoves do not. What are some of the barriers to electric appliances? Lack of awareness. I think, I've been working with PC for 7 years and been working on our building electrification programs most of that time. Awareness has kind of increased in the past couple of years, but I think by and large, still a lot of residents are unaware and unfamiliar with electric alternatives for space heating and water heating. So that's a big, focus is trying to get more of the word out about what we offer and the benefits of electric appliances, that it really gets the job done. Another barrier is cost. So typically the upfront cost of these appliances is more than gas appliances, like a like-for-like replacements. That's why incentives are really key. And then sometimes it can be a little bit more complex than like a gas replacement. So we offer a suite of services. We have kind of branded everything under home upgrade services, rebates and financing. We've been offering rebates since 2021, so we've had that the longest. We've been offering a zero interest loan since 2022. What's really new that we've launched, really this year, is we have a more personalized support offering that helps residents like one-on-one if they have questions. We have a full service installation program that I'll talk about more, which includes an option for, or like a way for income qualified residents to receive no cost appliances, or like appliances at no cost to them. And then an emergency water heater replacement service, which is really critical, especially for the water heater market, just because we know that most people replace their water heaters when they're broken, and that makes it an emergency because you don't want to go without hot water for more than, a day or two. So rebates and financing, currently our rebate for heat pump water heaters is $2,500. And then for heat pump HVAC or space heating and cooling, it's $1,500. So these are rebates when you're replacing a gas water heater or gas furnace with a heat pump. And then on top of that, we have a $10,000 zero interest loan that can be financed up to 5 years. So these two offerings stack, so residents can get both the rebate and the loan. Our zero interest loan is an on-bill financing offering, so you pay back through your monthly electric utility bill. So it's a really easy way to pay back, and because it's zero interest, and it's a really helpful way for folks to be able to make that transition without such a big upfront cost. And then we also have some additional rebates, like an adder for care fair customers. Those are just residents that receive discounts from PG&E because they're income qualified. And then $1,000 electrical panel rebate if like that was required to do the heat pump water heater, heat pump HVAC upgrade. So a little bit more about our personalized support. We have also recently brought in a call center in-house. So we're more set up to be able to support customers with questions about, the programs that we offer. We, for a long time, had a third-party call center that wasn't as equipped to be able to do that. So we just generally are able to support more program questions about our offerings to our phone line. And then we also have our personalized support that's an electrification advisor. This is more of a scheduled service, but for residents that have like really technical questions or maybe need help with like knowing where to start, or maybe they want us to take a look at some of the quotes that they got from a contractor and help them understand it. Those are the kind of things that we can help residents with when it comes to building electrification. So that is the focus. It is in solar and like battery storage, which some people may have questions about. And the focus is really like, replacing gas appliances with electric ones. Full service installation. So there's kind of two, tiers of support here. The upgrades are free for income qualified residents, and I'll share what the eligibility criteria is on the next slide. But for those that are not qualified for the no cost upgrades, we offer the incentives, the same incentives that I've already covered. But we have fixed pricing with some the contractors that are participating in the program. There's 2 of them. And we've pre-vetted them. We know that they're doing quality work and installing heat pumps, and they've been doing it for years. And we also just provide more robust support in helping residents understand all the different incentives available and making sure that that's all up front. So eligibility criteria for specifically full service installation, they do need to be a PCE residential customer, a homeowner, a single family home up to a 4-plex, and then at least install a heat pump water heater, heat pump HVAC. So it just means that, like, specifically through our whole full service pathway, like if somebody just wants to install like an induction stove, that's not something that on its own the program would do. Like, you need to do one of the major appliances in the home to be able to do other things. And then this is the additional criteria for getting it for free. So they need to be the owner and occupant of the residence. It's just a slight difference. Like, if a resident is getting incentives but not getting it at no cost, tenant occupied properties are eligible as long as the property owner is the one applying. But when we provide the installation at 0 cost, it is only for homeowner occupied homes, so no rentals. Their income has to be below 80% of the area median income in San Mateo County. The residence has to be below 2,000 square feet. And then the resident cannot own multiple properties. And then their investable assets must not exceed $500,000. These last 2 bullet points, are really self-attestated. We ask about them in the application, but we don't actually, verify them. That said, the 80% AMI or area median income, that is verified, like, before somebody can receive services. Emergency water heater. So the program is like a specific line that goes directly to one of our contractors that is able to replace a failing or broken gas water heater with a heat pump water heater within 48 hours. And if there's a scenario in which, like, the permitted heat pump water heater installation isn't feasible within that 48 hours, then we would do some other solutions, like maybe installing like a gas loaner and whatever, to do whatever's needed for the water heater, the heat pump water heater, to be able to get installed. But it is focused on like that rapid turnaround to really help solve that like market challenge of most people do it when it's broken. So just a little bit of understanding of like the different customer needs, because I think with the new offering of full service installation, I think when we first launched the program, like we maybe had some people like even within our like onboard and CSC that like, okay, like most everybody's going to go through this, but it's really not like the only pathway for residents to be able to electrify their homes. Like I mentioned, we've had rebates and financing for a long time. So I think that for someone that's just wants to choose their own contractor or even do it yourself, which our rebate program does support for self-installations as long as they get permits, or somebody that like really wants to compare multiple quotes and just like have an exact say in like what the exact equipment model and all of that is, they can get a rebates and financing. They can utilize their personalized support. Full service installation is not the best option for them. Full service installation is really more intended for residents that just are okay having less control over the equipment and the contractor selection, because they don't get a choice in like the contractor is just assigned with the one of the 2 pre-vetted contractors that we have, and we have like a list of pre-selected equipment. But for someone who just doesn't want to be as involved in like all the details and want to get multiple quotes, then this would be a good option. And of course, for anyone that's income qualified for the free upgrades, then that would be the only way to get the installation for free. And then if your water heater fails, then of course the emergency water heater replacement is like the main program for that. Yeah, so that's all my slides. So happy to take any questions that you all may have.
Thank you for the presentation. Do you have any data on how many Brisbane residents have utilized your services?
I do on the rebate, the full service installation we launched this year. And we haven't had that many homes completed. We've only had like about 10 homes completed through that program, and I know none of them are in Brisbane. But our rebate program, which has been running for longer, definitely has some Brisbane.
Alejandra, you're still sharing your screen.
Oh, I am? Oh, sorry. My bad. Okay, well, thankfully. I'm just trying to log into where I can find that number for you.
Oh, okay. I mean, it would be interesting to see how many took advantage of the rebates year over year, because you've been around since 2016, right? I don't know if that was available to us back then, but whatever data you have would be interesting.
We've only had rebates since 2021.
Oh, okay.
So, and yeah, let me just use some. We do have how many by city we have. Yeah, it looks like in Brisbane, since we've had rebates since 2021, 34 homes.
34 homes? Okay. That's pretty good.
I have a question about new construction. Do you reach out to people who are building new homes? That would be a great opportunity to go all electric. It seems less intrusive.
Yeah, our rebates and financing programs that I presented on, those are not for new construction. Those are for retrofits. So for existing homes that are replacing gas water heaters, they're not for new constructions. I don't work on anything like policy related, but I know that a lot of ways that we kind of focus on helping new constructions go all electric is through things like reach codes and more code based. But yeah, our rebates are not for new construction, or neither is our financing.
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned a rebate related to the electrical panel, but I think it was $1,000, right? But is that limited by income, or is that always applicable if the panel has to be upgraded?
The rebates are not limited by income, so the $1,000 is for anyone.
For the electrical panel, so you could get $1,000 for the electrical panel and $2,500 for the water heater, for example, without any pre-qualifications.
That's correct.
Okay. I was going to also ask, do you know what the average cost of a water heater project is? Like what of the, from like your 2,500 rebate, what's the average total cost of a project?
Yeah,
Do you have any data?
Yes, we do. The average cost of a heat pump water heater is around like $6,500. And it really varies depending on there's a lot of factors, but it could be the size of the water heater. So bigger tanks,
of course, sure,
are more expensive, and also exactly where the water heater is going. The most straightforward and therefore cheapest replacements are the ones that are like water heaters in garages, where you just swap out and then you put in the same place. But if you're having to relocate the water heater, run new plumbing lines and all that, then that can bring the cost up. But yeah, based on our data, it's around $6,500 for a heat pump water heater.
And for the just the heat pump systems where you get a $1,500 rebate, what's the average cost for the? I know those can vary a lot on the building size and all that, but what data do you have on how much that costs?
Yeah, no, there's even more variability, just because it really varies on the size of the home and like whether it's a ducted system or ductless. But with all of the data that we have, the average cost is around $20,000. But there is a lot more variability there. Like we've seen projects that are as like cheap as like $8,000, but there are some that are like $60,000. So it really depends on the size of the home, what it is they're doing, what kind of equipment they're using. But I'd say like $20,000 is the good average for a single family home.
And sometimes you have to put 2 heat pump systems in, for separate areas of a house. Do you get $1,500 for each system, or is it the total rebate for both for the house?
Yeah, we do offer up to 2 rebates per home. And yeah, so for homes that have 2 furnaces, so that the best situation for them is to install 2 separate heat pumps, each with their own condenser, they would be qualified for 2 rebates. We do the amount of rebates based on how many condensers are installed, because that's kind of the easiest way to like know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is up to 2.
Okay, great, thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's such important information. I had a couple of questions too, if it's all right.
Yeah, of course.
So the advising and installation, I'm curious how folks can find that info, and if it's through sort of administered through a third party, or like Baylands or something like that, or if you've taken a lot of this in-house now.
We have taken a lot of it in-house. Most of our programs are in-house. Our rebate, our financing program, our personalized support is in-house. Yeah, for personalized support, if you just go to our website, like on our website, there's at the top, it says like residential, then home upgrade services. And then from there, it just says, yeah, I can share my screen back again. But, you know, from the PCE website, if you navigate to residential home upgrade services, there's a couple other ways to find it, but that's the easiest way. Home upgrade services, and then personalized support, your free personal electrification consultant. Get started, and then it takes you to that page, and then this is the form that you need to fill out to schedule that like phone call.
That's great. And is any of this discoverable through other services as well? Like I know Switches On has a database and these kinds of things, but is it only here
Yeah.
at this point, or?
It's a good question. Switches On definitely has our rebates and our financing, because Switches On is kind of focused on incentives. I don't know if they have a personalized support offering there. I will take a look at that.
Yeah, I don't think they do for personalized support, but I know they have a contractor database. So I was wondering about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. And then I had another question about, you had the slide with the per appliance emissions percentage breakdown. I was just wondering where that data came from. I was looking recently for something very similar and coming up with a little blank, so just curious.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to send it out. I always forget what okay, yeah, it's the California, I know the acronym, but I just looked it up to make sure. It's the Residential Appliance Saturation Study. So it's data from the California Energy Commission. But yeah, if you look up California Energy Commission Residential Appliance Saturation Study, that's where that data comes from. Our team, like somebody in our team kind of like took the data to put it into that graph. It's not like that graph came from them, but yeah, it's from there.
Totally. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else?
I don't have any questions. I would like to comment that the emergency water heater replacement program, I think, is such a benefit to our community. That is definitely an emergency service that might make you keep with your gas your gas water heater when you really do want to go electric. I'm someone guilty of that before the rebate program happened. So I look forward to possibly next time. That's it.
Thank you.
I had one more question. Related to the emergency water heater, would that still qualify for a rebate also in addition to using the emergency service?
Yes.
You would, okay. So the reason you incentivize the water heater service much more than the other one is because it has a larger greenhouse gas reduction potential, right? It's not that expensive, but you give a larger rebate. That's the logic I figured. And if you think about it, I mean, just for people who are thinking about this, that would be the one to do because you would get the larger rebate and you'd be able to, finance it over 5 years. So if the project costs $6,500, you take out $2,500. It's a $4,000 project that you over 5 years you'd be paying like $750 a year instead of like a one-time maybe having to pay for the gas water heater $2,500 or something out of pocket. So this might be, I mean, for people who have to do it, that might be a incentive that they don't have to have that money up front. This is a way to upgrade and not have a lot of money up front.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. You can stack the rebate and loan and the emergency water heater service.
Thank you.
And then I have one more question. I might be the only one here who rents, and this is all very slanted towards home ownership. But as a renter, I would imagine that even if my landlord doesn't live in San Mateo County, if I had an emergency water heater episode, then he would qualify because he doesn't live here, but his home is here? Is that how that would work? And I just wonder if you know how many people who rent can take advantage of any of these programs.
Yeah, so for all of our rebates and loans, technically, like any rental property can take advantage of it. I think it's just more that like water heaters and furnaces are typically things that a landlord pays for. It's not a thing, you know, a renter, if it breaks or something, is the one paying for it. That's like part of the landlord's responsibilities. So, so we like renter occupied units, like they can apply for a rebates. For a rebate, it's really easy. Like the property owner just, you know, applies, and it doesn't matter where they live, to answer that question.
Yeah.
As long as the property is within, you know, San Mateo County, and also that the property is a Peninsula Clean Energy customer. I would say in like 90% of cases, like in the rental units, the PG&E bill is in the tenant's name. So you have control over like being a Peninsula Clean Energy customer. But it does need to be like a Peninsula Clean Energy customer in order to go to receive the rebate. So like, again, most likely the tenant just has to make sure that they're a PCE customer. But it doesn't matter if the property owner lives, you know, not within the county. The loan is a little bit more difficult for rental units to access, and that's because of the PG&E bill. The loan is a on-bill financing program, so the only way to pay it back is through the PG&E bill.
Right.
And we want to make sure that, you know, the person paying it back is the property owner, because they're the ones that bought it. It shouldn't be the tenant. It shouldn't fall on the tenant to pay back, you know, this upgrade. But in most cases, the bill is under the tenant's name.
Right.
So we have had a few cases, I can think of like a handful that I've seen, where, you know, a property owner really wanted to do this. So they had their tenant, you know, switch the PG&E bill to their name, and then they just charge them they just charge them like with their rent at the end of the month, just so that they could access the loan.
Interesting.
Some places, like if property owners don't want to do that, if they don't want to take on owning the PG&E bill, then like unfortunately, like those properties just wouldn't be eligible for the loan specifically, because the loan does have to be like the loan is under the property owner's name, which means that the PG&E account has to be under the property owner's name, because that's who's paying it back.
Sure. The only other question I had was the picture was kind of hard to tell, but I couldn't tell if the footprint of the heat pump was bigger than the typical footprint of a gas water heater. I've rented a lot, and they all seem to be the same size, but it looked like maybe that heat pump was a little bigger. I'm not sure. Or do they tend to be, if you have enough space for the gas-powered one, you will always have enough space for the other one?
Not necessarily, yeah.
Because it looked big to me.
Yeah. When you go to heat pump water heaters, you do have to upsize.
Okay.
So that is 100% like a recommendation. So if, you know, if people have like a 40-gallon gas water heater, we would generally recommend a 65-gallon heat pump water heater. So 40 to 65. Okay. I think some folks can make do with a 50. Like they do make smaller heat pump water heaters, like 50-gallon heat pump water heaters. But it is important to upsize, because that's how you're able to run the heat pump water heater more efficiently.
Got it.
In like heat pump mode. Otherwise, if your tank is too small, the heat pump water heater kind of kicks into like electric resistance mode, which uses a lot of energy and will lead to like that being very costly. So typically they are bigger than the gas water heater they're replacing by about like 1 or 2 more sizes.
Okay.
I would say in like I think garages is like the most common scenario where that's not an issue. Like typically, even if it's a little bigger, it's not that much bigger. It's usually the width is a little bigger, and then maybe it's a little taller, but not a huge amount that it's an issue for a garage. Where it is challenging is when they're in indoor closets.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have anything else? No? All right. Well, thank you so much for that presentation and the information. It was amazing. As someone who has fully electrified their home as of summer 2020, you know, I can confirm that it's well worth it. This is something that I get excited about too, and try to get people interested in. So, you know, we've I'm hosting on a good day, I think. It's it's lots to get excited about.
Yeah. participating in our programs and being like a leader in that.
Yeah, and one thing that folks, I think, tend to overlook is the savings too. We're really seeing, everybody's mileage will vary, of course, but because everybody's home is different. But if you include the cars and all of the electric appliances that we've put in, I'd say we're saving about $4,000 a year on our bills. So that's not nothing. That's a big deal. Yeah. So anyway, if you're anyone listening is concerned about the climate crisis, one of the biggest direct impacts you can have is to just say no to fossil fuels in your own life, and this is a great program to help you do that. So yeah, again, thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Alejandra.
Bye.
All righty. Well, now I'm all worked up.
Can we, I think we've done it in the past where we've put some website URLs in the star and in the blast. Maybe we could do a summary of her presentation to give folks some information on the rebates.
Yeah, can anybody draft that? Give us a first
Well,
draft.
can I get a copy of her presentation? I don't mind doing that.
It's in the
I think it's
agenda
in
packet.
what she sent, yeah.
It's in, okay, thank you, okay.
That's in the packet
All
today.
right, then I will do that and send it to you. Okay.
That'll be great.
Good idea.
Fantastic. All right. So we're on to old
Maybe a
business.
potential library display too in the future.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that could be, we can add that.
Yeah, I'd love to do one of those. We did do the one on emissions, but we didn't really do home electrification specifically. So could be good to go after that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic. All right. So should we move on to old business? We've got the Baylands DEIR review.
So on the staff side, we neglected to get you the comments that were submitted until earlier today. It was just an oversight. We have them to look at. I don't know if you want us to put them up on the screen. Well, there we go.
Can I just ask, you're probably going to cover this anyway, but Barbara leaving, I'm going to guess we need to absorb her chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be big, given that we're all really treading water, trying to get our own chapters done. Do you know offhand how many she had and which ones they were? And maybe she already submitted her comments, but I'm thinking
I doubt it.
not.
I don't think it's in a slide. Let us find that. Why don't you put up the comments that we did get while we look for it? And maybe we start with this.
Okay.
Well, staff.
And
We were a little surprised by the announcement. So,
yeah.
let's pull it together.
Well, how should we handle this? Since we haven't had time to review, maybe should we have the folks who wrote the commentary sort of give us the rundown, or no? That seems.
I think that'd be good if you're prepared to. if you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
are
I
comfortable.
can. I'm just
Okay.
gonna read from this. And also just wanted to mention that I did pull up the Baylands plan review that we did a while back. Aaron and I teamed up, and that helped me along the way. So that was very useful. So the executive summary, not a lot, just called out that there's some significant permits that need to be required before we start the project. And a timeline, I didn't find a timeline in the document. That would be kind of useful to understand when we expect to pull these permits, when the Geneva overpass will be starting construction. All the road widening or lessening roads is important to understand. I'm real concerned with the word significant unavoidable impacts that are shown in abundance in this draft EIR. Air quality, noise levels, of which a lot of them are permanent. I'm not thrilled about that. And they call it out, but they don't call any, there's no backup plan or solutions to that. Again, a clear understanding of the staging for the Geneva Overpass and Lagoon Road. They all connect to Bayshore Boulevard, which is going to get revamped as one way each way. It's going to go from 2 lanes to 1 lane. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
You know, I, if you don't mind me jumping in, I also had that concern.
Yeah.
I later realized that when they extend Sierra Point between the current 101 off-ramp and Geneva, that I was worried about Bayshore getting backed up from people trying to avoid a 101 accident.
Yeah.
I think the extension of Sierra Point will take care of that in one direction only, right? It's only southbound.
Yeah.
So you know, it's something to point out in this DEIR, but when 101 has a problem, Bayshore backs up, and that affects us and the people in, you know, this valley. And I don't think going to 1 lane in each direction is right, but I wouldn't be that objectionable to 1 lane south and 2 lanes north.
Okay.
And in addition to that 1 lane thing, Mary, to your point, I'm doing the transportation chapter. Anything that's not signaled is going to be right only. You're not going to be able to go left onto Bayshore.
Yeah. So that's a big to-do. Construction vehicles, as you go through the document, there's going to be a lot of construction going on, a lot, especially if the quarry project is running in parallel with the Baylands. Where are all these vehicles going to be parked? I don't know. They didn't mention that at all. So that was a concern of mine. And then the air quality. Yeah, so risk from the diesel emissions exceeded the safe level according to their research. And the mitigation measures as stated, I'm trying to think back about this. They're saying they can lower those risks to acceptable levels, but I don't know how. And then the DPM, the diesel particulate matter, is the biggest source of cancer risk. And how do we ensure, the proposed mitigation measures? How do we make sure that happens? So can you scroll down a bit? So the next one I called out was the noise. So notification of neighbors within 300 feet of the construction area. About the duration of pile driving, at least 30 days in advance. I mean, how many days in advance did we get notice when they were doing pile driving out at Sierra Point, right? So I don't even recall getting notification on that. But I think that needs to be, we need to make sure that happens. And it needs to be all of Brisbane residents, right? It just, because that sound will travel and you will hear it during the nighttime. I don't know if this can be preventable. I doubt it, but it is a concern. And then I just called out what they stated as far as what can be heard and how far. But how far is Sierra Point, the lagoon from here? It's around 2 or 3 miles, right? Yeah, around 2 miles, 2.5 miles, I'm going to say, because I take that every day.
And you were hearing it pretty clear in town?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, yeah.
Can I pile on to
And
your
it bounces,
pile
I mean,
driving?
it bounces,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, we're a little amphitheater.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
it's
bounces
together.
right off the
It's the
mountain.
Yeah.
mountain, isn't
Yep.
it?
Yeah.
It's an echo chamber. I would say, based on the noise level from the solstice event on Saturday night that went until 9 o'clock, I was hearing it very loudly
yeah.
over my television in my
Yeah.
living room, and I'm not right next to that.
Right,
I don't think people understand the acoustics of Brisbane.
yeah,
but
yeah,
It seemed a little late and loud,
yeah.
and so I can imagine what the construction noise
Yeah,
would do.
it's just going to be crazy.
There are blankets that they can put over the pile And they barely talked about that, at least in the executive summary. I haven't read this section yet. But they talked about putting blankets on nearby buildings. And I thought, why would you put the blanket on the building
Right.
that's huge instead of putting it on the pile driver that's at the source and will protect in all directions? So I will foot stop that when I make comments, but I was pretty miffed about their, lack of what I felt was really thorough mitigation of the pile driving noise. And I did see that one of the alternate proposals, the one that was reduced density and reduced height, has less pile driving. And it still meets the state mandating, or the state housing element mandate number.
Yeah.
So, seed planted.
So a comment on that, because I attended the Planning Commission meeting when they had the folks from the Baylands here. And there was a lot of outsiders that came to comment, a lot of nonprofits and unions. They're all in favor of the project, but what was my point? Oh, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, a lot of folks were advocating for higher density, taller buildings. I'm not kidding, they want more housing. That's their goal. So I was taken back by that, but it's already, so just FYI. You can go back and listen
That's good to
to,
know.
I encourage you guys to take a look at, or listen to the recording of the last planning meeting, but that was a little scary. And then if you can scroll down to specific comments, okay, what is this? Chapter 1, I didn't have any. What was my next one? Was it chapter 2, I guess? Let's see. I was a little confused with who's going to be providing the water supply and wastewater collection services. They called out a few, it was California Water, and before it was San Francisco, right? So what is it, and have they signed up for it? The next comment I had was on key habitat areas, including Ice House Hill and Brisbane Lagoon. And I would like to see specific habitat areas be called out and documented. I don't want it to be very broad because we could potentially lose some protection on that. So that was my point there. On page 2, 26, I just commented on, would like confirmation that the habitat conservation plan boundary is reflected correctly. I don't think it's, for some reason, I thought it was not shown correctly. Let's see. Overall, so the 3 operable units, they call out with distinct contamination issues. And I guess I was concerned, have these been addressed, or when will they be addressed? And they're currently in development, or have been approved, or have they? There was a lot of uncertainty in that section. So if you guys take a look at it, please straighten me out if I am wrong.
That is my section. I haven't read the actual chapter, but I did read chapter 2, and I have so many questions.
Yeah, there's
that
just
I
a lot.
hope are answered later. Yeah,
It's a lot of material. And then I just mentioned that, we should request more risk mitigation strategies to protect against the disturbance of wildlife habitat and vegetation. There just wasn't many there, and that could they could run that over easily, right? So anyway, that's that. And so if you scroll down, okay. Oh yeah, so like the Baylands project, the impact of the quarry, there's a Candlestick Point project going on. I don't think that started. The high-speed rail, that's a huge area. I calculate it. So, and my concern is strictly on traffic and transportation. So, and the number of folks that will be coming into town to do all this construction. So the quarry project stated they anticipate around 19,000 new workers, while the Baylands is, I don't know, 8 times larger than the quarries project. Will need more. Where will they all park? Candlestick adds another 62 acres, and the high-speed rail site is around 71 acres, adds to the pressure. So if you calculate, it comes up to around 743 acres, which is 1.2 square miles of development projects going on. And that is, for Brisbane, that's something that, even though Candlestick Point doesn't fall in our purview, some of the high-speed rail will, the quarry will, and the Baylands will. I don't think we could handle it, right? I just don't. I had made a comment to someone on the Planning Commission. I said, you realize that the Brisbane staff would probably have to grow 5 to 6-fold at least to help manage all of this. And so you have to look at, will the revenue from these projects offset all of that, right? I haven't seen any financial, any forecast in any of these documents. And to me, that's really important. Like, who's backing all of this? How are they funding these projects? But anyway, that's when I looked at the total acres under development. I mean, that's a lot, and it's going to require a lot of resources on Brisbane. Okay, so Chapter 3, the project description. Okay, this was important because we're trying to be consistent across the various projects, including the open space plan. So the open space, open area definition per the DEIR needs to align with our open space document. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And called out, and Michelle brought this up during the plan. She was there at the Planning Commission meeting as well, and called out that the solar panel field in the Baylands plan is included as open space. It is not open space. It is acres of solar panels. So we need to make sure that we protect our open space, and the open space that is protected is called out exactly in this plan, because that's an area where it could go south and we will lose our open space. I also called, again, I called out the who's financing the project. And this project is going to be, it will be a 10-year, at least 10-year project. And as we all know how construction goes, right? And it never goes perfectly. And it's always 2 or 3x, what you thought. So anyway, okay. And I think that's, you're up.
I just say quickly, Mary, that my chapter on parks, open space, open areas, and recreational resources has the definitions that they're using spelled out in the first 2 pages.
Oh, okay. I'm just
So
wondering how that,
It would be a
I'll
good
take a look at that.
reference because it's all right there, very concise
Okay.
in terms of how they're defining it.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
If you scroll up, I use the executive summary as like a summary of what that section was about, not about the executive summary itself. So if it's here, maybe it's, can you scroll to the, oh yeah, that's right, the executive, sorry. Yeah, you were there. Keep going up. No, I mean the other way. You were fine. Okay, so because many of you may not have read this section, okay, so what this section is about is the fact that all the building will block views from within the Baylands and from Brisbane and other areas. It's going to block our view corridor. So that's what they're stating, and they do a very good job of a computer simulation of what the view looks like today and what it'll look like in the future with all these buildings in place, which is quite alarming, but it's good that it's there because otherwise it's just what it is. Then you can scroll to the scenic views and building heights. In the report, they have these two mitigation measures that state that the building height limits that are mentioned in the specific plan will actually help mitigate the measure completely, but they don't demonstrate what that really would look like. So I feel like if they already have images of what it looks like today, and then they have a model of maybe what the worst case is, they should also model what it would look like with their proposed mitigation measure. So we can look at it and say, oh, yes, it's still there, but it's a lot more acceptable. So I feel like it's hard to judge that they're saying that the specific plan will be effective when there's nothing to see. So that's my recommendation, that they add those images. And I think scrolling down. Also, it was not clear to me whether the height restrictions in the specific plan were actually codified requirements or general recommendations. I haven't gone into all the details, so it would be good for someone to double check that what they've proposed are actual regulations in the specific plan. I think you can scroll down. Oh, maybe, I'm sorry, maybe there's a section on the lighting, or is that there also? Okay. I wasn't here when you guys did all the lighting. I know you went into a lot, the city went to a lot of trouble to come up with the lighting plan. And it was not clear to me whether the Baylands will enforce it strictly, or whether it was like encouraged and for example, it says fully shielded fixtures, motion lighting, and it should be mandatory, not just encouraged. It didn't say that it was mandatory. So that's my general recommendation, that all those measures be mandatory and not recommended. Whereas possibly for Brisbane, a lot of things weren't mandatory, they were recommended because it's an existing community, but it's very different when you're building from scratch. You can make it much stronger and mandatory. So that was my recommendation there.
And I also noticed,
I'm sorry.
I also noticed with the lighting, because I was very sensitive to that, because I get almost all my late night pollution from across 101 from those just ridiculously overlighted tall buildings. Yeah. But they also would always caveat what I saw for the lighting by saying, but it must be sufficient to guarantee the safety of the 24/7 workers we're going to have here. And so I think there is a tension between dark skies and them saying that anytime they consider that it's a safety issue, they're going to light it up, and they're going to light it up as late as they need to, because I get the feeling reading it that people are going to be working there 24/7. Yeah. So I think that is an issue.
Yeah. Is there any way we can get, they talk about the lighting, but I didn't see anywhere about being compliant with Brisbane's dark sky ordinance? Did you guys see that?
Yes,
Oh,
definitely.
so they do
alluded to
call
it.
out the
They
dark skies ordinance.
call it out in municipal code with the number instead of calling it out as the dark skies
Oh,
ordinance in a
okay,
lot of
that's
places.
why.
So I think it was 1588 or something like that.
It's in my chapter.
And I have a question that I think is going to relate back to this. I got confused over, this is a question for staff. I got confused initially because there were, and I should have looked at this, they had program EIR mitigation measures, and you'd read like 6 or 3 or whatever, and then it would say additional mitigation measures. And it took me until chapter 2, which, mind you, is like 100 pages of reading, to to realize that the first set of mitigation measures, I think, came from the previous Baylands proposal, EIR. And since this is the second draft EIR, the additionals are the ones they just added. So I think there might be a problem where the first draft EIR didn't have the dark skies ordinance. So now when we're seeing it, it's sprinkled in with the additional stuff. I don't know if that's the truth, though. I had to assume that based on, 100 pages of being really confused why there were additional if they were all mitigation measures. Does that jive?
I don't know the answer to that for sure, but the first draft DIR was relative to the general plan, and they didn't have a specific plan at the time. So, because they specified more what they're building, then they would have more mitigation measures.
Okay.
May I
Please
say something here? Sorry, this is Michelle. Aaron, you're on the right track. Two significant things happened between the original DEIR, which was a program DEIR covering the entire site, and the specific plan draft EIR. And the two things were, in particular, Measure JJ. And also, they knew that they would have to make current things in the draft EIR to meet what is in the specific plan EIR. And so we need to be very careful to make sure that this specific plan, DEIR, meets all of the requirements stated and voted upon in Measure JJ. And I can see many places where I'm not sure that it does that. And many things were specified in Measure JJ that they must meet. And so we all need to really bone up on what Measure JJ says, and then as we go through this and look for those. And I think that's really important. And then, of course, things have changed in the laws since the original draft EIR, the program draft EIR, and this specific plan draft EIR. Also, Marion, in terms of the timing of different developments and everything, Chapter 3 has it is the chapter on project description, project technical 3.3, project technical, economical, and environmental characteristics. It has several tables that state certain things that have to be done before the next thing can be done. So it kind of sets out a timeline, even though there's no specific dates on it. It sets out a timeline of it, you do A, and then you can't do B until you do step 2, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So, for example, table 3.7 is a good example of that. So some of that is laid out, which makes it really difficult because they can't do certain things until other things happen, including building stuff to be able to pay for the infrastructure and of the next thing that's going to happen. But this project is so intense and so extensive that, Mary, you brought up a really good point. This could bankrupt our city. It really could.
Yeah.
So we need to be very careful going forward. Sorry, I'm so hoarse. I'm not supposed to be talking at all. So according to the doctor. Okay. And that's it.
Michelle,
Unless anybody has questions.
I'm going to ask you a yes/no question.
Okay.
In Chapter 2, they describe Measure JJ, starting on page 221. Do you know, or will you get back to us, that that is sufficient for those of us who weren't in town when JJ was passed to be familiar with as we review the remaining sections?
Which page did you say?
2-21. If you're not sure right now, could you just send an
I'll
email
look
through
it up.
staff?
Yeah, but
Okay.
also we really need to make sure that that matches what it actually said
Yep.
in the measure that we voted on.
Yep. Okay.
And that's what I referred back to.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point now, you've heard what, oh, there's more. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
what chapter is this? I forgot.
The significant and unavoidable.
Unavoidable, oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
commented
That was
on
yours,
that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you go first.
Oh,
and then
okay,
we'll see
yeah.
if I-
So I basically said, given the designation of a significant and unavoidable impact, it's imperative that we exercise heightened diligence in assessing the long-term consequences, and to develop a contingency plan to address potential outcomes. And then I just list what I said, the emissions, the greenhouse gas, noise, and traffic, basically. It's scary when you see significant and unavoidable. It's like, why would you do it, right? The impact of it. So we need to be, I don't know what we can do, given that the plan, we have to go forward with the plan, but we could ask for contingency plans. I don't know, backups.
Mary, this comment follows on that. I noticed that they talked about using engineered asphalt, which apparently does cut down on noise, and they threw that out as a mitigation measure because it was going to cost 26% more. And when you're thinking about the whole project, 26% is a huge amount,
Yes.
but it's only for the asphalt,
Right.
right? I mean, 26% more on such a small part of the overall cost doesn't seem like that much for a mitigation measure for a significant and unavoidable impact if it's avoidable by spending a little more money.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Pay attention to these when we read our sections, because I was really miffed when I realized they threw that out because of the cost of, a quarter more in asphalt.
Yeah. So the question
But-
is there anybody we had an outside consultant draft this, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure none of them live in Brisbane.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Can I follow on that one too?
Yeah,
This was my biggest problem from the quarry, and it's a big problem here, and I'll put it in there. Not only, this was a consultant that the city hired. We had some control. The people that they have promised to hire as consultants for biological resources, archaeology, tribal matters, the engineers, all of the engineers, the developer hires,
right.
right?
Yeah.
They're people,
And they're just checking boxes.
they're people who potentially could be in the pockets of the developers. I really think that's something that the developer needs to pay for, but Brisbane needs control of, right? Because we need to ensure that we protect our natural resources. We need to pick them, we need to vet them or approve them, and they need to provide reports to us when they provide those reports to the developer, and not after the developer can, soften the language before they give it to the city. So that's one of the things that I will continue to foot stomp with this one, like I did for the last one.
I was going to ask, does that fit in a chapter? Are you making those comments more? in a
Yeah,
general, or-
so I've read the first 3 chapters, but everything right now is still in ink, and I haven't formulated it in a nice way that's constructive and, makes a point in 1 paragraph or less. So I'll get there, but I'm not there yet, sorry.
Yeah, in both 2 chapters that I'm doing, the Parks and Rec and the Biology chapter, they use language that competent biologists will do the surveys. It's interesting phrasing, but you're right. It's not clear who it would be and what their background in the specific area would be. I would just point out that in chapter 4, almost half of the analysis is for windsurfers, but when you look at the wind data that they provide and you think about the dust and the landfill and the potential, it's all coming at us. It's very clear where the wind direction is, so just something to leverage. If you're thinking about the pollutants and the dust and the other things, you might want to look at the last few pages of section 418.
Oh, light. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. As I mentioned before, the dark skies ordinance. It needs to be called, the description that needs to be called out. Okay.
Yeah, Julie, the thing about the wind was because Candlestick Cove used to be a huge windsurfing area,
Yeah.
and the Baylands, when they put the big pile of dirt, it completely changed the weather there and ruined the windsurfing.
Wow.
But it was a big bone of contention when they did the first draft DIR.
Can I ask, because I think I know where Mary's going with the lighting, what is the tallest building in Brisbane now? I'm going to guess not 20 stories.
No, it's not. It
And
may
so
be.
did the dark ordinance,
Probably- it's
did the
probably one of the
dark
ones
night
that's 0
ordinance
point.
have to take into account a sign that's 20 stories
Yeah.
up on a building at night? It's probably mostly towards residential and home light emission, right? Because we don't have big buildings that light up at night.
Well, we
so-
have on the Baylands, and we have existing code about signage, which I am not familiar with, so.
Yeah, so the signage is separate because there's whole ordinances for signage. But one of the things that it does have is you should not be able to see a bulb from outside that property. So they can have that lighting up there, but it has to be shielded so that you can't see the source. Which is pretty clever when you talk about lighting a building that high. However, I don't remember all the safety exceptions. But it might be that if the light is on the building near the
Parking
entryway,
structures.
they can
They're
get around
gonna
it.
really light parking structures at night so you
Yeah.
can walk safely to your car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, there is a lot of light coming from the businesses on Tunnel. So the lumberyard, I forgot the transportation place.
The Kinder Morgan Tank Farm, I think, is the
Yeah,
biggest one.
I mean, those
Yeah.
lights, they shine right up.
Yep, but they've got 5 or 10 years or whatever to fix it. It's
Yeah.
the new
Right,
building has to
5
be
years, yeah.
compliant
5 years,
when it goes
yeah.
into
Yeah.
effect. Yeah.
Okay. I already talked about this. Let's see. Was there anything else? Yeah.
It's really helpful, you guys. I'm glad you two submitted comments. It gives me a better idea because I wrestle with how to
Yeah, I mean, it's,
distill what I'm thinking down
is, and-
into something that's actionable and that is clear
yeah,
and isn't just saying, don't do this.
yeah. Just trying to understand, because we know that the project's going to happen, and we're not going to be able to address every single issue. But I think if we address the major, like the significant and unavoidable, it's like, come on, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask questions that I've been asking the questions the whole time, but I actually have like 5 more that I got from the summary in the first 2 chapters that aren't my sections. I saw one mention in those first 3 chapters of the solar battery farm they were planning. And the only time I saw it, I saw the second proposed map it's exactly where the light rail maintenance facility for high-speed rail is now going to go. So I'm wondering if it's off the table now that we have a light maintenance facility for high-speed rail planned. Did anyone else see anything about that?
I did not.
Well, those two things were always sort of in tension, weren't they? I mean, do we have any idea at this point about what's happened with high-speed rail? Is that also going forward, or?
Settlement has been reached is all I remember.
Yeah, that's the last I heard too.
Yeah.
That's the last I've heard. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's not funded, right, at this point, but it's
Right.
planned.
Right. I mean, that's the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
They've been talking about doing that since I was a child, so.
But they didn't have a high-speed rail authority back then, right?
This
So
is true. Now there's an authority, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then
Well, what we could do is check the table that we identified when we went through that document, if that table has changed. So I'll go back and take a look at that.
and then Mary mentioned the Candlestick Point development. Apparently, in their draft EIR, they don't have to consider future planned work. They're only comparing it to right now. But then they do have to compare cumulative impacts, and it feels like transportation is where that is highest. And so I'm kind of confused as to whether or not the DEIR needs to consider the Candlestick Point plan development or not. But as it relates to the Geneva overpass, which has to be approved by a separate transportation authority, that becomes a big risk. And so I'm torn here because I'm not sure that this is the document that has to consider that, but it feels like there are parts of this document where it should have to considered, chapter 7 effectively. And either way about it, I feel like we should make sure that when we ask questions about it, I think we should be sure to ask questions about it, because if it's not included, they can say that. But if it needs to be included, we should ask. I think I said that right.
Okay.
There's a lot of codes where they have to comply for example, earthquake, seismic shaking. But the codes they're complying with, I don't think have to consider that the structures are built on a landfill. And so I have concern there, right? I mean, it's a code for just anywhere, but we're talking about a compacted landfill or piles driven through a landfill. And so I don't remember whose the earthquake section is. I hope it's not mine, because I'm not a California person and not an expert in that, but I was very worried about that. And then their vapor mitigation system is basically 5 feet of soil, which I have a hard time believing is a good vapor mitigation system for an ex-landfill. And then apparently the landfill's so old, there's also not a liner under it. And they talk about the Young Bay mud being extremely corrosive. And then when they talk about sea level rise, they don't talk about the fact that the landfill is at the edge of the water without this barrier under it. And so I'm worried about that combined cumulative effect, right? Of all of this pollution, sea level rise, the landfill is next to it. They're probably only worried about water going over, not water coming up from underneath. I think that's the right way of saying what I'm worried about. Yeah, sorry, I'm now thinking and talking out loud when I shouldn't be, but so if you see that in your sections, that's something I feel like we should all be tracking.
Sort of along the lines of the liquefaction kind of thing, yeah.
They do talk about contaminated fish, if they're encouraging people to fish, and what the water quality is in my Parks and Recreation, but I'll go back over it now that you've mentioned that.
Okay.
These things were discussed extensively over the last several years at the BBCAG, the Brisbane Baylands Community Action Group. In particular, their meetings that were hosted by the DTSC, Department of Toxicology, Toxic and whatever substances. So there is research out there on exactly what you're talking about, Erin, but I don't know a conclusion they ever came to, if any.
If you have any pointers to where I should start looking, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
I think on section 5, I had submitted a comment. If you can go back to that, I think I just found that. It was on what they call irreversible environmental effects. And I think that's similar to what you're talking about. In general, what they're talking about is obviously when you're going from land that has no development to land that's going to be fully developed, it's going to have a lot of environmental effects. And one of the ones noted in there is that the pollution from fossil fuel driven vehicles, because now there's not many people driving through the Baylands, but there'll be a lot more driving through there. The point I wanted to make is that they talk about transportation, and that one of the big effects will be from like rideshare services and delivery services, in addition to pollution from residents. So I think the plan, or in general, the specific plan has done a lot to reduce emissions from residents' vehicles with the bikeways, with the electric vehicle, promoting electric vehicles and the shuttle services. But there's nothing mentioned about doing anything about trying to reduce the rideshare services or the single or the delivery vehicles. And what I'm proposing is not a solution, but that they hire an urban engineer or urban planner or traffic engineer to look at how that has affected other cities. For example, I know in San Francisco that the traffic is so much greater after Uber started than when people used to ride Muni. People don't ride Muni, they'd rather use an Uber than the Muni. So the same way here, we're building from scratch and we're providing a Muni service, but if that's not being used because it's very easy for Uber to get around and all the Amazon to get around, maybe they should engineer some way of dissuading that or reducing the impact somehow. It doesn't address that at all. That was my point. It just doesn't address the impact from delivery vehicles or from Uber vehicles or trying to reduce that in any way.
That's because they're all going to be coming down Quarry Road.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I have the transportation section.
Right.
And I actually looked it up. There is some data on what percentage of households order from Amazon and how many orders they get a week. And if you multiply that by 2,000 homes, that is huge. And it will offset all the goodness that, like you said, because it's just a fact. I mean, I see it on my own street, but I'll send you the citation that I got because there are some data. You have to wonder who funded it and where it's coming from. But it is a huge number of trips. And it's a lot of pollution, and they haven't gone all electric. There's a lot of criticism of Amazon that they won't go all electric for the last mile of delivery. And because of that, their footprint, their greenhouse gas emissions are huge. And it's not just that, it's FedEx,
Right,
UPS,
sure. Yeah.
but it's mostly Amazon and rideshare. It's funny, I came up with the same thing, and I didn't find it in my chapter, so now I know to look in yours.
Yeah.
So at least they acknowledge it there, because they don't acknowledge it at all in my chapter.
Yeah, they
on
just
transportation.
acknowledge it, but don't just as if it's an irreversible fact, which I think they can look into it. Because, I mean, I think New York shut down certain roadways from cars or taxis at all to promote walking. So if New York can do it now with all the city being so many hundreds of years old, maybe they can plan something where the ride share only uses certain lanes. I don't want to solve the problem. I just think other people can solve it, but that's an issue that we should bring up.
And you gave that to us as a comment?
Yeah, maybe I'll check. If not, I'll send it to you again.
Okay, and we'll look. Maybe it just got dropped off of what's being displayed right now. So I guess that you guys have gone over what we have. So the question is,
When are you going to get more?
since this is different than the quarry where we had one meeting where you had all the comments and you had a chance to review them. I know you guys haven't all read through these, so is there an action that you want to take with the comments that were submitted for this cycle, or you want to postpone? Because we're going to have 3 meetings to review comments, so.
I wondered about that. I knew that there were going to be meetings to review comments, but we don't edit other people's comments, right? They all just go in as they were written.
No, I think you're, as a body, deciding what to do with the comments. Now, for the quarry, everyone was in agreement, and the only real edits were, instead of saying I, we're saying we, 'cause it's the body. There were a couple of minor comments, but it
So
would
that's
be
another big piece of work, is to go through all of the comments and edit those in some way.
My guess is we'll talk about them in the meetings, and then it's the best, I think, to write your comment as the final comment. So try to avoid I and say we, or write it so that so you don't have to use first person or first persons at all, which is hard. And then it might actually be worthwhile, since you two weren't here, to quickly read through our query comments.
Yeah, I did look at them.
Okay.
But not with that particular thing in
Yeah.
mind.
And then the hard part is going to be, we didn't see anything about this when we're in section 2, but that's because it shows up in section 4, for example, or whatever. But I feel like we'll have a rough draft of the full comment aggregate, because they're due so soon.
Yes.
And then we'll be able to edit that as one last thing. And really, I found that when I looked at that, the comments that I wrote were very easy for me to edit after that time. So it's not as hard as it sounds, I think. Is that what I'm trying to say?
So it's not just in a meeting, Karen. We're not just going to do it all live in a meeting. We'll have them.
So what we did, or at least what I did when I edited my comments, is they got sent out on Thursday with the agenda packet. And I emailed Adrian and said, Adrian, I read over my comments and these are the changes I'm gonna propose be made. And then she went in with track changes. And so everyone was like, yes, I like that comment Erin suggested. I approve the edit or whatever. I don't know if that was the most efficient way, but it felt like it worked, at least for me.
Okay.
You emailed her before the meeting and she was able to do that?
I emailed her between the Thursday when she put the minutes out, or sorry, the agenda out. And I just said, I read the agenda packet and I'm in the meeting, I will propose this change. And she had it ready to go as a track change. So that what she showed on the screen showed the, Erin recommends we update this to this.
But that was a lot smaller as a.
It was a lot
whole.
smaller, it's true.
So are there any assignments that were Barbara's that we need to pick up? I'm just looking. I know we have to scroll down.
My guess is I'm gonna get 4-3 and we can just take the and Ebel off of that one.
Yeah.
Looks like Barbara only had this one here. And I highlighted everything that was all, just so everyone can see.
I will admit that that is the one I'm the least excited about. So if anyone else would like to take it, I'd be happy to share or give it away altogether, but it's all on you guys. That's what I thought was gonna happen. I'll take it, it's fine.
So at this point, you do not, because you haven't read what's submitted, you don't want to take action on. These comments are, the committee is voting that these comments reflect, because they're also maybe not complete for the chapters either.
I think that we should consider those comments as submitted and part of the running list and not vote on them.
Yeah.
I commend you guys for getting your feedback in so early.
Yeah.
Are you done?
Pardon me?
Are you all done?
No,
Okay.
I have to go on to the next one that's due in July 15th, I think, is the rest of the all, right? And then in August, what's due is our specific chapters. So no, I'm doing it in chunks, so.
And I want to point out that we've moved up the deadline date in August, and that's because we expect a lot more comments, and we didn't get a third this first month. We didn't get a third of the comments, so we're gonna need time to compile them. We'll try to send them out earlier if we can, so that you have enough time to read everybody else's comments before the meeting. But it's gonna be a big lift in August. So also encouraging everyone to get in as much as they can for the July meeting by Tuesday, July 15th.
Do we try to avoid redundant comments? I mean, given that we've already seen some of yours, I would guess that we would refrain from stating the same thing, so that will help.
I think so, because they're
Yeah.
from the committee, so
Yeah.
each comment is from all of you. So everyone understands the deadline and the structure of the comments and what's still on the plate, on your plates. After the meeting, August 27th, at that meeting, you'll have to vote as a committee that these are your comments, so.
So I have a question. I think I've asked this before, but I can't remember what the response was. So we spend all this time on the DEIR with all of our comments and we submit them and we make sure they get them. How do we know that they get addressed and get changed? Or maybe they don't get changed?
Do they have to reply to them?
That's another whole lift, because they will put out a final EIR,
Yeah.
but we've talked about the process, but apologize, I'm not a planner, so I don't know the process exactly, but I believe that the planning commission does hold a hearing on it, and then the council has to adopt the EIR. and I'm speaking a lot of turn because I'm not a planner, but that's my recollection. Does anybody?
So do we get the opportunity to look at the final document to make sure that our comments are in there?
As a, certainly you'll get to see it, but as a body, I think that's something we'd have to talk about when, and I don't know that they have a date for the final EIR, so I don't know that we can block the time out on an OSEC meeting, but certainly they'll be publicly available, and if the committee wants to do that as a committee, that's something I can ask about.
I mean, we're spending a lot of time on reading these documents and providing comments, and we're all real passionate about a lot of the significant and unavoidable items that they point out. So, I mean, I would like to see the final product. I don't know about you guys, but
I assume it becomes publicly available. It's just, we've already made comments, and at that point, it's probably just on us to go to a meeting and say, your consultant ignored us.
yeah. Okay.
If you guys go back to the Planning Commission meeting where the draft EIR, this draft EIR was presented originally, and also one of the council meetings, I think, for the other one that talks about CEQA and what the process is. And basically, any comments that are made must be addressed, but that part of addressing them could be, we don't consider this significant and we're going to ignore it. Or they respond to it with a different mitigation or something like that. So every comment must be responded to in some way, or groups of comments can be gathered together and responded to in some way. And then that is reflected in the final EIR, which then goes to the Planning Commission to review and the council to approve or deny. That's just a very basic, very high level overview. Does that sound about right, Karen?
Yes, that's what my understanding was too.
But there's some very good primers on exactly how that works that have been discussed multiple times in different meetings. I'll see if I can find one. And then you guys can look at that and you'll have a better understanding of the overall process of dealing with a draft EIR and then how it proceeds to an EIR that either gets approved or denied.
So Michelle, during that planning commission, remember we had a lot of outsiders advocate for increase in housing and increase in how many stories the buildings would end up, or what they want to see, which does not match what I guess Measure JJ states. Is there, I mean, what happens? I guess I'm just worried about that sneaking in without.
Well, it's challenging because the people who came to speak don't really, they obviously haven't voted or read Measure JJ. They don't understand any of the restrictions.
Yeah.
They don't understand the challenges of putting a 35-story, housing tower on a landfill like that. So, they can come and say what they want, but the reality is they're not the ones that are responsible to make sure it's safe and that it meets the Measure JJ requirements.
Okay.
So it just puts us in a hard position.
Okay.
But we still have to follow what the Measure JJ was voted on by the people in Brisbane. I don't think that they would overturn that without a vote of the people.
Okay, perfect. Because the range was 1,800 to 2,000.
The range was 1,800 to 2,200.
Okay.
18 to 2,200.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So their pipe dreams of, 30,000 new residences. I'm sorry, at this point it's a pipe dream unless the state intervenes.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, so get us as many comments as you can by July, and we can move
Okay.
on.
Yep.
Can staff send us a copy of Measure JJ instead of us all have to individually go look for it?
I believe it's on the city website, but yeah, we can look into that for you, sure.
Okay.
Or just a link is great.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic to get a link, and we can all go to the same place.
Oh, just one other comment. Someone made a comment at that planning meeting, and it was about housing, and how we have to we have to start something at the beginning of 2026. So that was Nancy Loxamana. Do you remember, Michelle? She was real adamant about that, and I didn't really.
I can answer this.
Oh, you can? Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
so the housing element that the state mandated that is forcing us into 1,583 new dwelling units, the city has to change their zoning by, I believe, January of 2026. So they need to prove to the state that they are, making the steps to make this happen.
We're moving ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't have
got
to,
it.
I don't think they have to approve the Baylands development,
Okay.
but they have to change the zoning. So,
Got it. Okay.
what was I gonna say?
It's the same deadline as for the open space element. I wonder if it's related.
I don't know. I forgot what I was gonna say, sorry.
Even if we change the zoning, we cannot force the Baylands development incorporation to build. So we can do all the zoning and give all the whatever, but they're not going to build until they're ready to build.
Okay.
That could be, yeah.
Okay.
I think the state housing element, I think that's all the state can do either, is force the cities to make it so building can happen. Oh, that's what it was. I will admit, I've got my public platform to say it right now. The state is mandating this increased housing density, and they're doing it without the transportation infrastructure, and they're doing it without the water resources. And I feel like that is really a failure of the state, and I feel like they're pushing it down to the counties and the cities and the, citizens of California, and I'm just not happy about that, and I'll get off my soapbox now.
I'll call Gav. Okay.
Get him on the horn.
Oh my God. Okay.
Actually, I have a question for staff. I was talking about the frog project with a coworker, and he feels very passionate about frogs. And he said, I want to help. Can I make a contribution? So is there any venue for someone to put money into a fund to help pay for things related to the frog habitat restoration? I didn't know what to tell him.
I don't know the answer to that. We're gonna have to look into that for you.
Okay, can you look into that? Because
Wow.
I was thrilled that he wanted to do that. He lives in Illinois, but I sent him pictures and some of your stuff, and yeah. So I think that probably even some of the people that helped on that day might want to contribute aside from lifting and weeding and pulling.
Yeah, one of the things that we thought would be really helpful is to have like a row of informational signs that also demarcate the area where they shouldn't be weed whacking.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can sponsor a sign, and just with the city's approval that the city will, install the signs. And that way it keeps the public and appropriated fund money separate. I don't know if that matters, but it's an idea.
Yeah. Did they ever take the meeting about the weed whacking? I know that when we went out on our little walk, it still hadn't happened. Do you know if anybody ever got to talk to that property owner about the unfortunate destruction of the habitat?
No, I have not. I need to.
Okay.
It was a little bit difficult to find the tenant, so we'll work on finding the owner too. Getting them their contact information, I mean.
There was a lot of regrowth. I will just say on the upside, when we went back and visited, there was a remarkable amount of regrowth, so.
Great.
yay.
Okay, so we have the progress report on open space element comments?
So yeah, let me go first. From the planning department staff, Ken Johnson, that came to the last meeting, he made changes based on our feedback, and he made a presentation at the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and A. I'm forgetting what it stands for, committee, and he forwarded those changes to us, and they were in your packet, so I don't know if everything you're reading, if you had time to look at that, but there is a timeliness to this piece too. So he said he's kind of taking the input as he goes to each committee, and there will be a further document that he'll give to us July or August for review. We didn't get any further comments from the committee since he presented to forward to him, but we got the comments at the meeting. So I don't know if you guys want to let us know if you've read that or if you have any other feedback or the chair, Salmon, did ask that we agendize this and to kind of check in on the status and make sure everyone remembered that that was kind of another thing that was being worked on in parallel with the DEIR.
I glanced through it, Karen, and it looked to me like, at least the few that I saw, they had stopped doing that, really distilling it down to a sentence when it had been a paragraph. So I think they listened to what we said at the last meeting.
We did see that in the agenda today, but I haven't had a chance to review it at all. So I still would like the time to review it. My busy schedule. So I would like us to look at it again. I don't really have any comments for tonight, except that there were a lot of ones that were just blank. Does that mean we're not changing them? Do you know, Karen?
What do you mean a lot of ones that were just blank?
The left side versus the right side. I think that's what he said, that if it was blank, they weren't changing it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that'd be great to have that confirmed. Thank you. Sorry.
And just, I want to make sure that the definition of open space in this document ties to the Baylands DEIR. That's important.
I think one thing that I'm going to do based on tonight's conversation is any topic that's been thoroughly discussed, if it comes up in any of my individual chapters, I'm going to send the page numbers and references for those to other people, because I do think it is very spread out and there is some redundancy, and it would be good to know where all the dark skies references are and if they're consistent, and where all of the open area definitions are and if they're consistent. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of do some semi-indexing that way, because there's definitely no table of contents that would do that.
I guess whatever we could do as far as being very specific versus broad, hopefully would help the cause.
That's why I think having that link to the JJ measure will be important.
Yeah, because I looked up Measure JJ, and in Section 8, this was when I went to the Planning Commission meeting and Mary was there. It said key habitat areas, including Ice House Hill and Brisbane Lagoon and adjacent habitat, as identified in the 2001 City Open Space Master Plan, shall be preserved, enhanced, and protected. And in the 2001 Open Space Plan, it does on page 2 have a definition of open space / open areas, and it's very specific, and it doesn't seem to match. I mean, they're two very different things, open space versus open area in the 2001 general plan, and yet in the draft EIR, they keep combining it and going open space / area, open area. And so we need to be really very insistent that that is accurately defined and interpreted.
So can we just reference in the Baylands DEIR, per the open space plan?
That's what I'm thinking.
That's right? Okay, all right, yeah.
So this actually puts us in a little bit of a issue. If JJ refers to the open space plan from 2001 and calls out certain sections, and that's JJ that's voted on and is now law or what act or whatever.
Mhm.
If we change our open space element now, I believe it's still gonna JJ is gonna make the Baylands refer to 2001, which opens the city up.
Open
for-
space plan and open space element are not the same things.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I asked that last meeting because I said, if you're updating the thing, does the new one trump the old one if it refers to anything in the draft EIR? I think it is important that there's some concurrent things changing and it's confusing.
Yeah, and it's not just confusing to you guys, it's a little confusing to me too, and what I looked at in the definitions that Dolores sent around and different places are calling, so written comments, because so like the open space element, you made the comment verbally to Ken, it doesn't seem that he highlighted anywhere that this is how I addressed it, so somebody send a written comment and we'll forward that, and then he'll respond in writing, and then we'll know what happened.
Good.
It'll help clarify. So he'll forward the open space element as when it's ready to go to the, final review before it goes to planning commission. I'm understanding, I don't know if he's gonna come back, but he'll get it to you to review. So I would think that the best thing maybe staff can do is to lobby to let you give comments after the Baylands DEIR is done.
That would be great.
I don't know if that works for his schedule, but if you could actually do it in September, that would be optimal, right?
That would be optimal, or after our homework is due in August.
Yeah.
But then I guarantee I'm gonna need a reading break. But
Right.
after the homework's due.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so do we have any new business? No. No. Okay, so we're skipping over. All right. Staff updates.
I don't know, does anybody else have anything they want to do? I'm going to announce tonight that I am retiring,
Oh,
and August 22nd will be my last official workday. So
goodness.
I won't be here for the August 27th meeting. I still will be probably having to come in and clean out my office, but I know I'll be away on the 27th. The assistant city manager, the actual sustainability division is going to move under the city manager's office, and the assistant city manager, who is new to Brisbane since April, but was the chief sustainability officer for South San Francisco, is going to play the role that I played relative to Adrian and also help fill in while she's out. So my last event with you will be the Dark Skies hike. And apologies for the short notice. A lot of personal reasons went into the timing and the decision. And
Congratulations.
thank you.
Oh, we're gonna miss you.
Such a big
Yeah.
We are.
I mean, it's an exciting but scary time.
Yeah,
It'll be a big change
yeah.
for me, and I'll miss
Well,
this too.
congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. I've been
Yeah.
working for the city for almost 31 years now.
Yeah, you certainly deserve to have a great retirement, Karen. My heart's breaking that you're not going to keep working with us, but I so appreciate everything you've done. I can't even begin to tell you.
Thank you for that, all of you.
So party at the July meeting?
Or at
Skies
the
event.
Dark Sky hike.
Yeah,
That's
it
a little more
sounds like I
informal.
might be having a house party. I mean, not for the public. Yeah.
Gotta do something. Yeah.
All right, so I have no other staff updates. Let's move on to
Okay.
the last couple things.
Right. Well, let's see. Have we had any subcommittee meetings since the last time we met?
I haven't been in any.
We may not have a whole lot to
Had-
update here either.
A tree
we did.
issues subcommittee meeting, and
Yeah, we met with
that might be the only one.
I don't know,
Craig
Fireman
Whitner,
Craig.
Battalion Chief Craig Whitner, who
Yeah.
is kind of the lead on either defensible space or the outreach around it. Do you want to say more?
I'm just trying to remember. Bottom line, we want to align with their messaging on defensible space and what we can and what we cannot do.
Because we're looking to encourage, to increase the tree canopy, it's going
Right.
to require the contributions for everyone that has private property, not just, we can't do it all on city property. So my goal, I guess there had already been discussions between Chair Salmon and fire staff about other issues, fire risk and stuff. But I thought the goal of the meeting was to make sure that we were aligned when we tell people plant stuff, that fire isn't saying don't plant stuff. And we found that they didn't say, they don't discourage planting because we're in a moderate risk zone. They're really making sure you limb up your trees, you keep them healthy, you don't have dead trees, and then all the other things that are fuel issues, fire fuel around your home. So they said they'll look at whatever we're going to do for outreach, but they didn't have an issue with a tree somewhat near a home, or
Right.
even if a branch is
Right.
close to a roof or anything like that. They weren't
Yeah.
gonna come in after we told someone to plant a tree and say, you got to trim that tree or move that tree or get rid of
Yeah.
that tree.
That's fantastic.
They provided some literature, some links. I sent it to, Michelle and you, Karen, right? And I think you too, Molly, right? And Dolores, I think I sent that. So I can certainly provide it to everyone here on the committee, but I wanted to give it to them first. But he did offer a lot of tips and tricks, how to minimize any potential fire issues. So I could pass that along. But I guess the next step is pulling together, messaging to the residents of Brisbane on what we talked about, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really just prevention, right? And defensible space.
But are we going to tie that in with encouragement to plant trees? And
Yeah.
if we do, the tree management plan does get approved by council, pull that in too. You're going to see unhealthy trees being removed, but we would love to see healthy
Yeah.
ones be put back in their
Yeah.
place, all of that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if that's part of our current tree permit process. Right now, you can get a permit to remove a tree if it's, small or whatever. You know the program really well. I was wondering if we could put forward an amendment to that so that every time a tree is cut down on a property, another tree is planted on that property, or the homeowner pays a bigger fee to the city that would then go to plant a tree on some other city space. It solves the financial impact to the city of having to plant more trees, and it encourages more, tree replacement in the residential areas.
I think it is, but I can check. Confirm, let's say, I can confirm.
And enforced.
And that's a piece that the tree subcommittee has talked about, and that's a piece that, we want to kind of make sure happens. And as you bring that up, this isn't a bad time. It does say reorganization to talk about, since Barbara resigned,
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
space on the tree subcommittee, for example. There's a space on a couple of subcommittees if there's interest from anyone.
Do you know, Karen, how many trees were lost in that windstorm? I know a huge branch fell on my street, and somebody said a tree in front of the library fell.
And it's gone.
Community
Yeah.
center.
So I'm just curious, we talk about encouraging people to replace. Does the city immediately replace those kinds of wind damaged trees?
No, not immediately. We've been focused on, and did I talk about this with the subcommittee or at the past meeting when we did the tree plan, when we talked about the tree management plan? I think we talked about the revenue. It's going to take a lot of money to deal with the trees that are unhealthy and are dead.
Because that wind was awful, and I'm sure
Yeah.
anything that was a little bit vulnerable went down, because we had a branch all the way across our street.
Yeah, so we're asking for
berry.
money to deal with that piece, the removal and trimming and making trees healthy.
Yeah.
And that total was in the ballpark of $500,000.
Yeah, I remember.
And then I talked about all of the operating budgets that have money to maintain and plant trees, which if we get this extra money, we can use that towards replanting. We have a newer buildings and grounds team leader, and he's been focused on removing the trees that aren't healthy, which I think is actually smart on his part, because there are people in the community that worry more about a tree falling on their home
Yes, they
than
do.
about the canopy and climate change.
Yes,
So
they
if we
do.
can say we're addressing that, we've done an inventory of all the trees, we know what,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, other ones might fall, but we know what the unhealthy ones are, and we're
That was going to be
addressing
my
those.
second question.
Then
Having
we-
had that database,
then
was it
we-
predictive of what fell?
I didn't check those 2 trees, but
Okay.
we can then say, look, now we can plant. These are, you know, we want you to plant, we're going to plant. But no, it has not been the focus to replant in the past
Okay.
year or so that we've been dealing with the existing operating budget, with the trees that we know that are unhealthy, or people have done a service request and asked about in particular. But this is definitely a goal of the subcommittee to kind of move all of that forward, make our canopy bigger, healthier, and safer, right?
More wind resilient, if that's part of climate change.
Yeah.
We sure have had some unusually windy weather.
Yeah,
So again,
extreme and
yeah.
unpredictable. is gonna be the name of
Subcommittees
the
can
game.
operate with 2, but there is room for a 3rd if anybody.
So I guess
Has a
that Sierra
passion.
Point Park planning, there was nobody else on that one, huh?
Yeah, you know, that's kind of been on the back
What was-
burner.
Okay.
That was weird. Why did they have a subcommittee and then they didn't notify anybody? Because I thought I was Barbara's alternate, and then I saw that on the list.
Ah.
I don't think they've met. I think
It
that,
was on the list of subcommittee meetings, Karen. So I don't know if they met or not.
I don't know what list you mean.
The list of meetings that are upcoming, like on the city website where it says meetings.
I can check that. We can check that for you.
Okay. That was weird.
Oh, and I wanted to say, sorry, I was like, what was the other thing that I wanted to say? Is that I believe at the next council meeting, the city clerk is asking the council for direction on vacant seats on committees. So in one way, it was opportune timing for Barbara to say so now, because
Yeah.
they might initiate a recruitment. They might want it to start, I don't, you know, council will decide that soon. So it may be that they start a recruitment for open positions sooner than normal. So no changes to the subcommittee list at this time? I'm not hearing.
I'm surprised that Michelle's not jumping at Sierra Point Park planning. Michelle?
Oh, she just said she was backup, so she thought she was backup.
So I think she,
Right.
Yeah,
I-
we'll
I
ask.
assume-
Sorry.
yeah,
I do want to do that. Yeah, I had wanted to do it originally.
Yeah.
that's what I
And-
remembered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that one because I think that of everybody who's currently on the committee, I'm probably the most familiar
Mhm.
with the marina and the background of the marina and the changes that have occurred since we first opened the marina in 1982 and all of that. So yeah, I'd really like to do that one.
The science fair already happened, right? So there's no
Yeah.
time sensitivity on that
Yeah,
one.
that's in
that's done.
January. January, February, so.
Honestly, I feel like we're all gonna be so busy with the Baylands plan and then the open space
Almost.
plan / element that I feel like we have a few months on this, and by then maybe we'll have a new committee member.
Yeah, true. And one of the goals on the staff side is to have a couple of subcommittee meetings before I'm gone. One would be another of the climate action planning subcommittee, just to kind of complete the transition to the new staff people and make sure that all of, you know, everyone knows each other and that's shared. So we'll set that up between now and August. And then an events subcommittee to transition, talk about Day in the Park and the plan, and get new staff introduced to that subcommittee. and then Baylands and open space element.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. You haven't had a chance to sit with us in the Climate
No,
Action
I
Committee yet, so yeah.
So that'd be good if we have a meeting.
Yeah.
Preferably before like the 24th of July, because I'm going on vacation then, so.
I was on that committee before, so I don't mind temporarily rejoining to help with that transition as well.
All right, yeah, well,
Sense the
it'll only
excitement
be the
there.
one meeting before.
Yeah, I will totally go to
Baylands
that
comments
meeting
are due.
if no one minds me temporarily being on that committee. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe I can send out some of the documents that we'd shared before, just to get everybody kind of reoriented and thinking in the same direction.
If you want to send those to staff, we can get them to the other staff and to the committee members, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so is that everything on subcommittee? I think so. Calendar items. Okay, what have we got coming up? We've got, yeah, the Dark Skies Walk. That's in August. Let's see, and we've got our comments due, sure.
We have on the calendar, we have the Dark Skies Walk, and then in September, on the 20th, we have Coastal Cleanup. And then right after Coastal Cleanup, we have Day in the Park. And then I'm hoping sometime in the winter, after the rains start, that we talked about it at the last meeting, of having a broom pulling habitat day on Ice House Hill. And Karen, I believe Randy's department was going to ask for permission with the Baylands to be able to do that, have access to do that. I'm happy to do it if they don't want to. But I think the sooner we start pulling broom on Ice House Hill, the better chance it has of actually being habitat left.
Michelle, this
So-
is Molly.
Yeah.
Me and Christina are working with staff from the Baylands to coordinate the broom removal from Ice House Hill sometime this
Thank you.
winter. So we'll to get access.
Thank you, Molly,
volunteer event.
very much.
So
Yeah.
we'll keep you updated.
Michelle, what environmental conditions are best for pulling broom? I remember doing the spring and it was, super easy because the ground was wet, but I wouldn't doubt that there are other good times of year to do it.
Once the rains start and the ground gets wet, damp, then it becomes not so hard. But as soon as the ground starts to harden up and dry up, it's really virtually impossible.
That sounds like a January thing then, doesn't it?
Well, it could be a November, December thing, depends when the rains start coming.
Okay.
Obviously, a couple of years, December would have been like, whoa, But yeah, January is good too. But a lot of times, December, November, those are good days, good times too, depending on it just depends on the rain.
Okay.
So if we move that to January, can I suggest that Corey, the Crocker Trail, get a good cleanup?
The tunnel could definitely use some
Yeah, it's
cleanup.
looking
It
pretty
was
shabby. There's a
horrible.
lot of garbage.
It's all broken glass and
Yeah,
paint cans and
yeah, there is a lot of plastic down from the school.
is there
There
another
are
frog
different ways
habitat?
to
calendared?
approach,
Sorry, is there another frog habitat restoration calendared? I can't remember if we were
It's
gonna-
August. It's in August, and it's on we put it on here. August, and then
Okay, so those are activities.
November, yeah.
Got it.
we put it down as a maintenance reminder because you need
Yeah, we need,
Paul Buscal to
yeah.
initiate. So it's a reminder for the subcommittee to kind of liaise with him and
Yes.
figure
I
out when
know
a good time
he
is.
wanted the velvet grass pulled before it went to seed. I don't know if that happened. Okay. I'll ask.
And just to point out that we've agreed not to do the summer habitat restoration just because your burden, our burden, but we typically have 3 habitat restorations and the coastal cleanup a year. So the frog ones we were able to add because staff is not physically there, and I think you guys are working through how to do that without staff, but my understanding is that's kind of a limit of staff support, and that we can't do a lot more events than that. So winter cleanup, that we can talk about Crocker Trail, is whether there are other ways to do that, you know. It may not need to be a volunteer effort,
Okay.
but I don't know that we can keep adding events and staff them and fund them.
Could there be a public cleanup of Crocker Trail that doesn't involve staff?
Yeah.
Because it's a public spot. It's not like some of the other cleanups where there are areas where we need, you know, adult supervision to go.
Right. Yeah, and not unsafe. But you do need pickers and
Actually, with all that
containers
broken
and-
glass, you might want waivers.
right, right.
I know we've had a problem in the past with asking the city to pick up dead paint cans. So that I think would have to be a personal effort.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't speak to that. I don't know the background, but
brooms and gloves.
sounds like something for the events subcommittee. Does that make sense, or is there anything else that? Okay. And then I want to point out vegetation management plan is on for this month, but I have not gotten the proposal yet from the consultant. I asked them in late April, and then it slipped my mind. So we'll bring that when we have it, but it's not a lengthy thing to discuss. So maybe next month would probably be good, actually.
Okay. And Chair and committee member matters. Do we have anything specific? I don't. Do you have anything, Michelle? Still on? No.
Right. I just really like to thank everybody who came to the San Bruno Mountain Watch Summer Solstice celebration and the amazing support we got from the city to pull it off. It turned out great. I lost my voice in the wind, but it was really enjoyed by everyone that attended. So I was very, very pleased. And Julie, the music ended at 8:45. But it was really good. All 4 bands donated their services, and it turned out to be a great event, even though I stressed over it unbelievably. So that's about it. That's the only thing I have.
Okay. All right. Well, so our next meeting is July 23rd. Looking forward to that. Everybody's got lots of homework.
Yep.
Well, I'll be getting busy on that. All right. And unless there's anything else, I think that's a meeting.
Thanks. You get to
We
bang
are
the gavel
adjourned.
if you so
Oh.
desire.
Oh, dear.
All right.
Goodness.